Buenas tardes a todos y a todas las asesoras y asesores externos especializados y docentes del Programa Nacional de Inglés de todo el país, así como a las autoridades educativas locales de las 32 entidades federativas. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy. Bienvenidos a la Jornada Nacional 2023, que este año se centrará en la enseñanza del inglés desde la interculturalidad. Mi nombre es Ale Alfaro y es un placer ser su anfitriona en este gran evento que ha sido organizado por PRONI, Programa Nacional de Inglés de México, con el apoyo de British Council. Antes de empezar, es muy importante que establezcamos unas reglas. Son todos bienvenidos a publicar sus comentarios y preguntas en el chat, asegurándose de mantener una comunicación respetuosa y positiva. Nuestro objetivo es enriquecer su práctica docente y proporcionarles herramientas para la mejora de la educación en nuestro país. Por favor, tengan en cuenta de que no se aceptarán comentarios dañinos, violentos, inadecuados o no académicos. Tratemos juntos de mantener siempre un ambiente respetuoso y 100% académico. Si tienen algunas dudas sobre su constancia, al final de cada día publicaremos un enlace a un quiz para que respondan y con este mismo quiz registren su participación. Por favor, asegúrense de que su nombre y apellidos y sobre todo su dirección de correo electrónico estén correctamente escritos. De lo contrario, no se podrá obtener su constancia. Si alguno de ustedes tiene algún problema con la constancia del año pasado, por favor acérquese a la oficina del PRONI en su entidad. Las constancias se entregaron en agosto y seguramente les podrán dar más información sobre su constancia. Es importante también comentarles cómo poder activar los subtítulos en YouTube y para esto les daré una serie de pasos. En caso de que sea necesario, por favor, sigamos las instrucciones. Número 1. Ingresamos a la transmisión y seleccionamos las herramientas de configuraciones que se encuentran en la parte inferior derecha de la imagen. Número 2. Ingresar a configuración y seleccionar la herramienta subtítulos. Dar clic y cambiar a español o a inglés en caso de que ustedes así lo decidan. Número 3. Automáticamente se activarán los subtítulos en el idioma que ustedes hayan seleccionado. Para desactivar, dar clic en la misma herramienta de subtítulos que aparece en la parte inferior derecha de la transmisión. Número 4. Para cambiar el idioma de los subtítulos, dar clic en configuración en esta parte inferior de la transmisión y seleccionar la herramienta subtítulos. Y en el botón traducción automática, seleccionar el idioma de su preferencia. Con esta serie de pasos podremos activar nuestros subtítulos. Al finalizar cada una de nuestras sesiones, dispondremos de 10 minutos de descanso para movernos un poco, tomar un poco de café, quizá refrescarnos, pero sobre todo, y si tienen oportunidad, ¿por qué no? Comenten en nuestro chat, platíquenos de dónde nos están transmitiendo, de qué son parte, de qué escuela son parte, y con esto volver preparados a la siguiente sesión. Daremos el inicio a esta gran ceremonia de apertura. Para esto, por favor, permítanme darle la bienvenida a nuestro maestro José Emilio Mejía, director de la Dirección General de Gestión Escolar y Enfoque Territorial, a que nos regale unas palabras y declare el inicio formal de esta jornada 2023.
¿Qué tal? Buenas tardes a todas y a todos. Es un honor darles la bienvenida a la Jornada Nacional 2023, la enseñanza del inglés desde la interculturalidad. Primero, quiero expresarles a ustedes un cordial saludo de la Secretaria de Educación Pública, la maestra Leticia Ramírez Amaya, y de la Subsecretaria de Educación Básica, la doctora Marta Belda Hernández Moreno. También reciban un cordial saludo de su servidor. Este evento se enmarca en una transformación social y educativa que está en curso en nuestro país. Hoy en día hay una participación amplia de los ciudadanos y de las ciudadanas en la vida pública del país. Existe el respeto a la Constitución y a la justicia. El ejercicio de la democracia, de las libertades y el derecho a disentir es pleno. se fortalecen los valores morales, culturales y espirituales de nuestra población. Es una constante el cuidado y la promoción del patrimonio cultural e histórico de nuestro país. Existe hoy la nueva escuela mexicana y esta impulsa una revolución de conciencias que busca la formación de un ciudadano crítico y participativo. Ello ha dado pie a la transformación del currículum nacional en este gobierno de la Cuarta Transformación, sobre todo empatizando para la educación un sentido humanista que favorezca el bienestar de la población. Como referente tenemos un perfil de egreso en el cual la enseñanza de la lengua extranjera, de manera particular la enseñanza del inglés, son elementos fundamentales. Este perfil de egreso establece que todo sujeto, todo mexicano, toda mexicana, tiene derecho a una vida digna, a decidir sobre su cuerpo, sobre su identidad personal y colectiva, al bienestar y al buen trato con libertad y responsabilidad, al reconocimiento y valoración de la diversidad que caracteriza la nación mexicana, a que todos, mujeres y hombres, vivamos en igualdad de derechos y autonomía para una vida digna, sin violencia y discriminación. Esos son algunos de los rasgos del perfil de egreso de esta nueva escuela mexicana que se articula en 4 ejes formativos y en el cual están alrededor los ejes articuladores. La enseñanza del inglés es ahora un elemento que tiene que insertarse en esa lógica. Tenemos que pensar qué sentido tiene la enseñanza del inglés en un país donde hay una transformación educativa. ¿Qué se debe de enseñar en el inglés en ese sentido? ¿Y cómo se articula la enseñanza del inglés con los campos formativos y con el trabajo en proyectos en los diferentes niveles de la educación básica? En ese sentido, es importante empezar a debatir asuntos como el de la interculturalidad, el de la interdisciplinaridad, para que la enseñanza del inglés en nuestro país está alineada con todos los propósitos de la transformación educativa. Desde hace ya varios años, maestras, maestros, asesoras y asesores educativos especializados han contribuido de una manera decisiva a que este Programa Nacional de Inglés tenga impacto y tenga implante en todo nuestro país a lo largo de la República. Por ello es importante realizar jornadas de este tipo para que recuperemos la discusión sobre nuestra materia de trabajo y estemos en posibilidades de hacer propuestas que hagan que la enseñanza del inglés sea muy empática con la formación del nuevo ciudadano, de la nueva ciudadana en que está empeñada la transformación educativa en nuestro país. Por eso es necesario este tipo de debates, este tipo de diálogos y poner en el centro lo que se requiere ahora para darle a la enseñanza del inglés desde la interculturalidad todo este sentido social que requiere a propósito de pensar en los que menos tienen, de pensar en aquellos que han quedado rezagados y sobre todo de pensar cómo la enseñanza del inglés se convierte en una herramienta para reducir las asimetrías sociales que existen en nuestro país. En ese sentido, quiero agradecer la participación fundamental para la realización de esta jornada del Consejo Británico, que ha dado continuidad a este esfuerzo de colaboración con nosotros para las jornadas académicas que se han realizado dentro del Programa Nacional de Inglés. Quiero agradecer también la participación de la Comisión Nacional para la Mejora Continua de la Educación. También agradecer a las docentes y a los docentes de la Escuela Normal Superior de México y de la Dirección General de Educación Normal y Actualización del Magisterio. El compromiso que manifiestan al participar con nosotros hace más fuerte el compromiso y la responsabilidad que tenemos en el ámbito de la operación del Programa Nacional de Inglés. Quiero agradecer la participación de todas y todos ustedes y desear que este evento sea lleno de aprendizaje, y que ayude a darle continuidad a este programa que hace rato decía ya tiene muchos años de que existe. Sean todos ustedes bienvenidos a esta Jornada Nacional. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, maestro José Emilio Mejía. Ahora comenzamos presentando nuestra primera sesión y ponente del día. Permítanme cambiar ahora al idioma inglés para dar inicio a la sesión. Now, it's time to start learning. So let me welcome our first speakers of the day, Liliana Sanchez and Laura Mesa. Liliana is Head of English Programming at British Council, Mexico. She is the former programming lead for the Remote Teaching Center at British Council, Argentina. She is the former Cambridge English Language Assessment Delta Module 2 assessor and tutor. Liliana holds an MA in TESOL for Canterbury Christ Church University in UK, and her interest is teacher education. On the other hand, Laura, who is sharing a video with content, has been involved in ELT for more than 30 years with a focus on teacher education for more than 20 years. She currently lives in California, United States, where she writes and edits ELT materials besides teaching remotely for the Faculty of Education, UVG. Welcome, Liliana and Laura.
Hello? Can you see me? Apologies, technology is not working well today. Okay, thank you very much, Ale. Okay, as I said, I'm struggling a little bit with technology, but hopefully.
Okay, so apparently we are having some connectivity issues. I am sure that Ms. Liliana will take care of that. And just a quick reminder, let's see if she's able to connect. Liliana, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, but I think there is some sort of delay.
Just a little bit.
If you can hear me, I will carry on.
Yes, please go ahead. I think we hear you quite well. In case there is another issue, I will be here.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I am here on behalf of Laura Mesa and myself. Laura is at present giving a talk at the University of Kansas. And so she gave me permission to use one of her presentations because she addresses the topic of emancipation and indoctrination. I have problems with that one. Okay, the Latin word is that, but the word in English is ritualistic teaching. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to invite you to look at and listen to Laura, who gave a fantastic presentation about critical thinking and the happy classroom. During her talk, she's going to ask you 2 questions. And I would like you to answer those questions in the time that she's going to give you to do so. Because when you return to me and we carry on with this presentation, I am going to address your answers and the questions she poses. And you will see at the end, hopefully, how the topic is very relevant for the reality that we're living in the classrooms. All right. So if you could help me, production, with the video for Laura Mesa.
I am a teacher, a materials writer. I work with university students teaching subjects like curriculum design or second language acquisition. And I do lots of things that have to do with education, but I love working with teachers. I think I see myself mainly as a teacher and a researcher of my own practice. And when I find interesting questions, I like sharing them with colleagues like yourselves. So thank you very much for being with me. And what we're going to do today is to talk about this question, the critical versus the happy classroom. And I'm going to ask you if they are the same thing. Quick answer is yes, they can be the same thing, but we're going to elaborate a little bit more on that. So in this presentation, what I have is two views, and that's the proposal, two different visions of education. So I'm saying the critical classroom is one, the happy or the safe classroom is another one, and asking if they are the same thing. And as I said, yes, they can be, but let's see what we mean by each of the different views. And the one that I'm contesting is especially the one of the happy classroom. I think most of us agree nowadays that we want students to think and to take that thinking to different areas. And yes, we want them to be happy. Happy is a necessary condition, and you can see that in the abstract for this talk. I'm not against happy classrooms. They are great places to be. But this pressure that we have nowadays of keeping students entertained, I think is not fair, and I think it can be misunderstood by many. So happy is not entertaining, it's not clapping and cheering the whole time. I'm going to argue more for a safe environment, and we're going to have a discussion on that word by the end of the talk. But what I want to argue is we want a space where people can express ideas. So reviewing a little bit what my critical classroom is, I want to have a critical classroom, or most of us do, where students know the verbs in the simple past and they can remember them at the bottom of my pyramid, but I want them to understand the verbs in the simple past. I want them to be able to use them in sentences, to apply them. I want them to analyze their text, other people's texts, and then decide, evaluate if the simple past is correctly used or not, if it's necessary or not, the implications of the use of the simple past, so that they can create, and this is at the top of my critical thinking pyramid, they can create their own text. They can be themselves. They can express their ideas. Now, my safe or happy classroom would be one in trendy theories nowadays, where social and emotional learning happens, which is not, the whole class is about feelings and about love and sharing. It's just a classroom where students are self-aware, where they can control their emotions in such a way that it doesn't affect the community, or it affects the community in a positive way. They can listen to me, I can listen to them, we can be ourselves. This social awareness that social and emotional learning applies, that they propose and that they endorse. Relationship skills, talking to one another, engaging with teachers, authorities in the school, etc., etc. And we argue for responsible decision making. So my classroom is going to be critical and also an environment where people are aware of the implications of their actions. So here I'm going to stop for a little bit to ask you, okay, so what would be the purpose of teaching English, or what would be the purpose of education? I'm going to ask you to please use the chat and write the answer to this question. And I'm going to be silent for about 2 minutes. I'm going to be reading your answers by the end of this talk, so express yourself as you prefer. It is okay to answer one question or the two of them if you have the time. Thank you for sharing your ideas. I will be addressing them at the end of this talk. But I think this is a central question to what we do. And the general purpose of education is linked to the general purpose of teaching English language. So why do students go to our classroom? And it is most of the times because it's an academic requirement. But it's not just that, is it? When we're acquiring a second language, hopefully acquiring this language, what we want to do with it is functional, and it's this need of communication, which should be true, which should be honest, which should be based on needs, social needs or emotional needs. So communication is really important, and communication in the second language is not just going to happen in our classroom. We have the task to teach something that will be useful behind the walls of our classroom. So social and emotional learning would tell us, yes, let's address these issues in the classroom. Normally what teachers think is, okay, so if I'm going to teach my students to take responsible decisions, I'm going to address critical thinking on this academic side inside the classroom, and that's it. And then we will have moments for the rest of the social and emotional skills. But I would argue that critical thinking happens in, or should happen, in every area of our lives. And that's one of the discussions that I often have with teachers. Anything that we learn as teachers in reading skills, we can apply them outside the class, right? So coordinators, your teachers are not reading memos there's something on the reading task that is wrong, and we should be able to apply critical thinking to that problem and solve it. Have self-awareness. Is it my writing? Social awareness. How are my messages affecting people, etc. So every area of our lives should be using the critical thinking skills that we apply at school or that we learn at school. So my critical classroom can be a social and emotional classroom, or should be a social and emotional classroom. But learning doesn't stop in the classroom, does it? So this organization that is called CASEL, and that stands for the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. You can find them online with this beautiful chart, and also on guidelines of how to implement this in schools. But what they're saying is what we already know. Learning doesn't stop in the classroom and is not constrained to schools, but it's also affected by families and caregivers, by the whole community. So everything affects what happens at schools. And what happens at schools will eventually, if it's done correctly, affect the bigger world. So if we're arguing for transformational learning, learning that has an impact, it should reflect and eventually change the community. And if education is playing a good role, it will change the community for the good, which will take us back to the purpose of education. It's not just for people to pass steps or to get diplomas that won't mean anything, right? It's so that people can express themselves and act in the world in which they live, therefore creating a change, and hopefully a positive change, a change that we cannot even foresee. Now, that's innovation, right? Or they call it innovation in teaching or theory of education, social and emotional learning. But if we go back in 1967 to Freire, Paulo Freire, brilliant educator who taught us what critical pedagogy is, and the reference you see on the slide about the year 2018 is just the year of the reprinting of his book, the 50th anniversary edition. So we have somebody who a long time ago was telling us, learning is about the dialogue that we establish with students. And I think this is especially relevant when we're talking about language. So dialogue should be central. This communication should be central. And it should be done in a loving and a compassionate way. And this doesn't mean a condescending way. Oh, poor you, I'm going to save you from your ignorance. It's not like that. It's a compassionate way. It's trying to understand your reality, trying to understand that your position is not more important than mine, and your position in the world is as important as mine, and that we can both make a difference as a student and learner. It's about a dialogue that is free of arrogance, a dialogue that where you can trust me, I can trust you, where we have faith not only in our students, but in humanity in general, and especially a dialogue that engages the participants, and those are Paulo Freire's words, that engages participants in critical thinking, where we can question everything we want and not feel ashamed or afraid or judged. A dialogue where we can open up. So feelings would be important, and important issues will be brought into this classroom. So instead of talking about what Mr. Smith bought in the supermarket, we can talk about what you did yesterday that made you happy or that made an impact in somebody else's life, etc., etc. Dialogue should be central in education. And even if this educator was thinking about his audience, who were adults. This applies for every student, in my view, because it doesn't matter how old or young a person is. People are people, and people want respect, people want their dignity, people want a space that feels safe in the sense of expression. I can say what's on my mind, and I can therefore start changing and looking at other alternatives of thinking. So this is Paulo Freire, and I'm going to almost end with this, but the main ideas that I want to share with you and that we can have time discussing is, as teachers, we are not paid to entertain people. We are paid to do a job that helps people envision a better future, have hope in a better future. So what I'm pleading for people to do is, yes, create spaces which are motivating, but spaces where people feel free to take a risk, to make mistakes, to express what they feel with respect for themselves, for others, and where people can share. And that is totally doable when we model positive dialogues and when we invite people also to engage in open dialogue. So everybody has to have an invitation, a respectful invitation, because every student should be important in our classes. Now, there's an educator, an American educator, brilliant Black woman called Bell Hooks, which I recommend you read, who advocates also for open dialogues and who advocates as well for the teacher's voice. Where is the teacher in the interaction? Is the teacher being themselves? Are we really expressing our emotions? Are we really sharing with students our frustrations, our successes, etc., etc.? So modeling the dialogues, the open dialogues, is important. And doing our job with love is also important. And what she would tell us is that the practice of love offers no place of safety. And here's where we go back. So what is a safe place? A place full of love implies risks. And we risk loss, according to her, hurt and pain. We risk being acted upon, forces outside of our control. So what will happen in this type of classroom is that students will feel free to express things that sometimes will make us uncomfortable or will make them uncomfortable. So we risk having somebody crying in our classroom. And it has happened to me. When I was a young teacher, I started teaching. I had somebody break down in my classroom and cry. And my solution at the time was, don't do that activity in the same way again. It was, be careful about this, so that, but it's not
Unfortunately, we are having some technical issues. We all know as teachers, we've been facing through these issues, and we're going to give it some minutes, a moment, to be able to reconnect the audio as well as possible. Meanwhile, I'd like to give a special greeting to all the people who have been posting, where are you seeing us from? I see people from Estado de Mexico. I see people from Nuevo León. I see people from Durango. Welcome, everyone. Oaxaca. I see people from Villa Victoria, Ixtapal del Sol as well, Culiacán. I see people from Tlaxcala, people from Campeche. Welcome, everybody. And we're just going to try to reconnect with this wonderful video and with Liliana.
Thank you very much, Ale. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Ale?
Yes, we can hear you
Okay.
very well, Lily.
Okay, so if you want, it would be good to continue. If anybody can help me with my presentation. Unfortunately, this is what happens with technology. It never plays fair with us, you know, it always makes us look bad. But anyway, if you can hear me, then I would like to retake the conversation that we were having with Laura. I asked the organizing committee to help me present Laura's slide and presentation for various reasons. First of all, because it explains very clearly what the critical thinking classroom can be, but something that a lot of us do because we want to create a great environment in the classroom. And this is going to take me to, thank you very much. Can we go to the next slide? Basically, to rethink very carefully if what we do in the classroom is something that we like, or because we experience it firsthand and we enjoy it, or not. So basically is, can the happy classroom, as Laura described it, foster critical thinking and ritualistic teaching and learning as well? This, please, think of these as ritualistic thinking is endoctrinamiento. I'm sorry, the word is very difficult to say in English because it's Latin rooted, but it's basically ritualistic teaching. Okay, so the question is, can they actually both exist in a happy classroom as described by Laura? Well, we have to start by what is ritualistic teaching or ritualistic learning? Can we see the next slide, please? Basically here is, on the one hand, on the left-hand side, if you're looking at the screen now, we have got several things that we usually say as teachers. I always check instructions. I make sure to pre-teach vocabulary when we're doing a reading, for example. I use pair work and group work as much as possible. These are a collection of statements and actions that many teachers, and we're talking about professionals that have been working for quite some time, and believe very strongly that these are things that they have to always do. Always. And if we look at them, they are not necessarily bad. But the question that we have is, what informs ritualism? Is this ritualistic teaching? The answer is it can be. It can definitely be ritualistic teaching or endoctrinamiento if we do not reflect on the principles behind these actions. So what informs ritualistic teaching? Our own learning experience. It can also be teacher training, prescribed teacher training. You know that many of us, me included, we went through courses to become teachers. Laura confessed it, you know, when I was younger and teaching in my early years, I used to do this. Yes, because the first time you learn to be a teacher, you actually get like a formula to go into the classroom. This is what you have to do. This is how it starts. This is what goes in the middle, and this is what goes in the end. Then some of us pursue more professional development. And as we're doing it, we realize that there's not only one formula, that there are several. But even then, we use in the classroom what makes us feel comfortable, what we believe is fun in the classroom, and that's what Laura was referring to. A happy classroom. I remember back in the day when I was doing ISEL courses in Mexico, a lot of teachers said to me, oh, this is going to be a fun class. Well, that is fantastic. It's great that it's a fun class, but that doesn't necessarily mean that learners are learning. Or it can be a fun class for you, but not necessarily for them. You know, and so ritualistic teaching can be informed by our own preferences, our own beliefs. I'm just going to share one anecdote with you. I visited a school once in a place that I'm not going to mention, in a school that I'm not going to mention. But, you know, name, that's what I meant. But this school, the teacher said to me, we use this book. I said, but it's a bit dated. Why do you use it? Because it's very good. And I said, oh, really? Why? Because I learned with it. And she was a coordinator. So everybody was using the book that she learned with because she believed in the book. She believed in the methodology. She believed in the teaching principles. And that was fine, but that was fine for her. So the question is, how we overlook the principles that lie behind all those actions that you have listed there and many more that you can list. So what informs ritualistic teaching? Many things. It can be the institution and their policy. It can be the system and its policy. It can be techniques that you learn very well, but you haven't developed any further. It can be your own learning experience. It can be your teaching experience. Okay, can we go on to the next slide, please? So, can a happy classroom foster critical thinking and ritualistic teaching and learning? Of course they can. A happy classroom, as described by Laura, one that fosters a humanistic approach, can still be ritualistic in its own sense of, I want students to feel quite catered for. I want students to feel important and considered as individuals. Yes, but you can still be quite ritualistic in what you do. So how do we move forward? Please, next slide. How do we move forward? Well, it is necessary, and as Laura said, it's necessary to think everything that you do in the classroom, why am I doing this? Now, you don't have to ask that globally for everything you do, but once in a while, stop and think. Why did I do this? Why did I teach? Why do I teach with the door open? One day I learned of someone who always did it, always left the door open. And one day I went and said, why do you teach with the door open? And believe me, there were a lot of reasons, but none of them were pedagogical. Oh, you know, it's just, you know, it's friendly, so that the students don't interfere. I was like, yeah, but always? Do you always leave it? And what I realized is that the teacher had not reflected on the effect that this had on the class. She thought that it was quite good to have it because it would refresh the classroom, it would allow latecomers to come in without interrupting the class. Yes, but what happened to the ones that were inside? How we ask students what effect our actions and our decisions have on them. Are there other options to do things? I mean, when we say, copy these words from the class, from the board, copy the word and write the meaning. How about draw the meaning? How about write the translation of the word? What about write or do whatever you think it will make you remember the meaning of the word? Have we asked students? Reflective teaching, which is a way to move far from ritualistic teaching, to move forward from ritualistic teaching, involves examining our own beliefs. Why do I believe that dictating to students is good? Why do I believe that asking students to read aloud is good? Why do I believe that? That's the first thing. And then it's aligning that practice with what happens before, during, and after the class, and reflect on it understand, look at the evidence. Did it work? Why didn't it work? If it has always worked for me. But not all the students are the same, not all of them. So, can we move to the next one, please? Can we move to the next slide, please? So, for example, how do we teach learners to be reflective? Laura started her presentation telling you about using a verb, a tense, and be critically reflecting on how it's used. Of course, you may think, yes, but students are not going to be thinking, I'm using it because of these, and I am applying it because of these. Well, the answer is yes, they can, not in one lesson, and not at all levels. I mean, the climb or the pyramid that Laura showed at the beginning with critical thinking also refers to the progression of learning. Apologies about that. With the progression of learning. So what does this mean? That when students are young, they will have certain level of understanding and use of abilities. If you're familiar with the Bloom taxonomy, they will apply certain strategies and certain levels of thinking. And of course, in the beginning, they will only be able to relate to some things. Later, they will be able to do more critical thinking. But if we don't start when they are young, if we don't develop the strategy to critically reflect and think about the use of the language, what they are learning, how they are learning, then when they reach an adult life as language learners, they expect a translation or they expect to learn in one way. They expect you, the teacher, to spoon feed them because that's what has happened throughout the learning process. So it's not the job of one teacher, it's the job of our collectivity, our community, the collective of English language teachers, to start thinking of how to develop strategies and critical thinking. And in many cases, it has to be done quite explicitly. You have to model the strategy. For example, when children are learning vocabulary, for example, you may use onomatopoeia. So the words that sound the same way as the sound that they represent. For example, roar. A lion roars. So roar, roar. So that's onomatopoeia. So you model the strategy. There are some words. Come on, everybody. Roar. And then you write the word. And so some students will learn that onomatopoeia does help them remember the meaning, but it won't be the same for all of them. Think of also the different special needs that our students have. Some of them are not very good auditively, or some of them may be impaired. So you have to think of visualization of the word. So instead of roaring so that they learn the meaning of the word, you may draw a lion, and that will be for others to learn. So we can model the strategy and tell them, here is the word, I have shown you the meaning, now I'm going to show you different ways to remember it. A picture of a lion, the sound of a lion, a zoo. You know, some kids may have been to a zoo and they probably saw a lion. So when they hear the word lion, they don't see the visual that you have. They don't hear the sound that you gave them. They see the word zoo with many other animals and they remember lion. Some of them may have a stuffed animal and what they need is realia, a stuffed little lion. So you model the strategy, you give them the different ways of remembering the word. You let them experience. Okay, choose which one works for you. Oh, this. Okay, so draw the lion. Oh, you want to roar like a lion? Okay, do it. Let them experience the strategy. Then ask them about the strategy. Next day, when you say, who can tell me where's the lion in a picture? Or who can tell me the name of the animals that produce this sound? And then you can ask them, did it work? And maybe they say, no. And of course, when you ask children, you will ask them in Spanish, ¿funcionó? ¿Te funcionó? ¿Recuerdas lo que es un león? No. Do you remember what a lion is? No. Okay, why? Or yes, I do. Roar like a lion. And probably you ask them, did you like the way you study the word? Did you like the way you remember the word? Oh yes, I really enjoy it. Okay, so try it with others. Others where the sound is the sound of the word describes the sound. So roar or lion, whatever, you know. And then you ask them, would you use it again? They may say yes, they may say no. You could even ask them, how would you do it differently? Oh, no, miss, I think I'm going to draw it. No, yo mejor lo dibujo, porque eso de recordar el ruido no me funcionó. Okay, and little kids can have that level of reasoning. Simple, just saying this yes, this no. And that is critical thinking. Instead of imposing, you know, we are emancipating. We're giving them the freedom to decide how to learn, and children are able to do it. Because if they are able to say, I don't like this food when they are at home, I don't like to do homework, it's because they are already reasoning about what the experience gives them. Okay, can we move to the next one, please? Okay, so Laura had 2 questions, and I really enjoyed reading your comments because there were all the words that are here were constant. Communicate, global citizen, and there was one that was recurrent, learning for life. That's what a lot of you said. Others were saying we have to give them knowledge and skills, and we need to let them develop. Others even said, you know, we need to let them discover the culture of the language, but at the same time, the differences between the culture of the foreign language and the culture of their own language. And remember, this language is not necessarily Spanish. Sometimes this is the third language. English is the third language they are learning. Now, I went to school in Chiapas and I observed some classes, and it was so interesting to see how children were referring English to tzotzil, not Spanish. And those are other strategies, and the teacher was letting them do it. Why? Because the teacher was emancipating them, giving them the freedom to think for themselves. I really like this definition of Martin Luther King that says the function of education, the purpose of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. That's very important. They have to think critically. And what's the purpose of ELT? I found this definition as well, and this coincides with many of you, is to lead productive and fulfilling lives. Whatever you can equip your learners with will be for their better future. Somebody said that in the chat. I'm sorry that I can't remember all the names, so they were just coming very fast, but thank you for all your participation. I think we all know what the purpose of education and the purpose of ELT is. Laura made us think about it. What I hope we manage, Laura and I combined, is to make you think critically about what you believe, challenge what you believe, and allow learners to take control. That's emancipation. Somebody said empower students. I remember that word as well. So give them the power to make decisions about the learning. Don't stick to the belief that children cannot do it. They can always do it. That's why you and me back in the day, we taught children because we believed in their capacity, and we believe in their capacity to lead their own learning. It's just that sometimes we have to let go. And when we let go, it's because we have taught them how to do it. At least we have given them the strategy, show them the way, guide them to experimentation, and help them regulate it a little so that they are successful language learners. So I think that's it. If you would like to roll the next slide, please. I don't know if there are any questions. My email address always shows weird. But anyway, it's liliana.sanchez@britishcouncil.org. It's always a bit dark. Apologies for the hiccup with technology, but if there is any question that you have, I will answer on behalf of Laura. As I said in the beginning, she had to give a lecture in the university, at the University of Kansas, where she lives. But I hope I had made justice to her presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lily. And of course, please thank Laura for this wonderful and very, very interesting and critical session. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you, Ale. Now, I don't know if there are questions, unfortunately, because I had to use my phone, I can't see the chat, but I managed to see a lot of comments about the questions that Laura posed. But if there are questions from the audience, I would like to reply.
Awesome.
If not,
well, there are many, many comments. We'll see if
you.
we can get a hold of some questions. I can tell you that there are a lot of congratulations because they really liked your session, yours and Laura's, of course. But meanwhile, if you want to ask some questions, meanwhile, I will tell everyone that we were facing some difficulties with connection, evidently, but remember that you can rewatch the sessions using the same link. So just in case that you weren't unable to watch the session correctly and fully and you want to rewatch it, please go ahead and use the same link. I do have a comment.
Yes.
Let me tell you a comment. They're asking if it's available or if it's a possibility that you can share the slides.
Oh, yes, of course. The production team has them because I send them because of the technology problem. So I don't mind if we can share it to authorities so we can just distribute them to people registered. For me, that's perfectly fine. No worries at all. Please.
All right, perfect. Well, there are a lot of thank yous and congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm thinking that most of the teachers and colleagues are just thinking and very critical about their classes. We will share them. The production will share the session slides with the coordinators from PRONI. Okay?
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Ale. And as you know, I'm the head of English programs, British Council, Mexico. And because of the problems, the technical problems in the beginning, I didn't have the opportunity to thank PRONI Federal for the opportunity to join them again in this important endeavor, which is providing quality CPD. This particular year is very special. I'm sure everybody knows because we're really sharing knowledge curated by the Ministry of Education. So thank you very much to everybody. Well, I just sorry that I couldn't intervene in the beginning, but I was struggling with technology. But thank you very much to PRONI Federal for this.
Thank you, Liliana. Thank you very much. A lot of congrats again. And we are very happy to have you here as a speaker. Thank you. And let's get ready for our next session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we are going to be having a quick break, and remember to stay tuned in because we're having a great next speaker. Welcome back, everyone, to this wonderful day of sessions. And please remember that if you want to watch live, do a refresh, all right? And I'm very happy to be back here. And I would like to introduce our next speaker, Ms. Selene Bongora Baltasar. She collaborates with the English Language Office on behalf of the English Language Fellows Student Program, an exchange program of the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs of the U.S. Department of State. Currently, Selene is a host at the Dirección General de Educación Normal y Actualización del Magisterio, Mexico City, where she specializes in providing professional development to in-service teachers in the areas of methodology and pedagogy. Selene holds a Master of Arts in Applied Linguistics from San Diego State University and has taught at different levels since 2009 in the United States, South Korea, China, and Taiwan, focusing on student-centered learning techniques to promote confidence and overall well-being in English language proficiency. Please join.
Hello, everyone. I hope everybody can hear me. Let me share my presentation. All right, just a few seconds. If at any point you can't hear my audio, please let me know. I know sometimes audio is a bit hard to, with the connections, it can be a little bit hard. All right, it's loading. Just a few seconds. Perfect. Now I can see it. Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I would definitely like to thank Brony for inviting me. I am so excited to be able to reach so many of you around our beautiful country. Good afternoon to everybody who's here. I know you guys are super busy teachers, and you're probably in the middle of class right now. But I highly appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you taking the time to develop your profession. So welcome. My topic for today will be culturally responsive teaching. And this will echo some of the ideas that were already mentioned with the previous presenter, but we're going to go a little bit more practical. And thank you for the lovely introduction. I always introduce myself as well because it is I want you to understand where I am coming from. I am from the Tijuana, San Diego International Border area. I'm from both sides. Soy de los dos lados. Soy de aquí y soy de allá. I have my master's degree in applied linguistics from San Diego State University, and I have been teaching in many contexts, from 3-year-olds who don't speak a word of English to retirees. And I also have lived in many countries, as you can see, South Korea, China, and Taiwan. So that's a little bit about me. I am with the English language programs, which is a program of the Education Bureau, the Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs of the US State Department. So on behalf of all of our team, thank you so much for being here. So what is our goal for today? Our goal for today is we will use 2 activities to guide us to reflect on what culturally responsive teaching is, what it means, and how to use it in a class, and its relevance to Nueva Escuela Mexicana, which I think all of us are a little bit anxious of, what it means in this new curriculum. So we're going to touch a little bit on this. Hope you are ready. I know it's only 2 activities for 1 hour, but trust me, it's a whole process. Since I would like to guide you through the process. It can't be done. It can't be done too quickly. We can't rush good things. So let's start. We're going to start with the first activity. Are you ready? I hope you are. Let's dive right in. So I will show you a series of actually six images. And I want you to think, what does it mean to you? So reflect on how these images make you feel. I think about feelings mainly, okay? That is my goal here. Feelings. Now, some of the images are a little bit old. So think of the image when it first came out. Don't associate it too much with what happened afterwards, or maybe not too much into the future, because maybe those feelings have changed. But the images, what do they mean? What did they mean to you as they were coming out? All right, 6 images. Here's the first one. I don't want to talk about it too much. I'm just going to let you reflect, think about it. If you want to write some of your ideas, that's even better. You can write your ideas. You don't need to share in the chat. This is for you. There is a lot of emotions that might be happening or that happen at that time. Oh, but thank you so much for sharing. Oh my God, dreams, soccer, unity. Oh my God, I love those answers. You guys are awesome. All right, next image. Maybe a lot more here. Think about, again, what feelings does it evoke? Do these images evoke? I see empathy, teamwork, solidarity, help, dreams, proud, even sadness. Teamwork, earthquake, yeah. Togetherness. Oh, great answers, you guys. Union, afraid, definitely. Everything is valid, you guys. There is no right or wrong answer. Helping people, tragedy, heroes. Thank you so much for sharing. Next image. I know it's another sports, but it's okay. We can work with this. Any more feelings at that moment for these Olympics? It's been a while since then. So we have champion, humanity, proud, pride, honor, effort, solidarity, happiness, female, proud, okay, winner, teamwork. Okay, next one. This one's a little bit different ideas, but I, as a foodie myself, maybe you can relate. Support, discipline, patriotic, anger, that's okay. Belonging, proud, winner, women, victory, respect, friendly, effort. If you don't know who she is, that's okay. You don't need to say anything. But she is one of our chefs here in Mexico City, and she has been nominated one of the best chefs in the world, a Mexican chef. Food, beautiful, proud, okay. Pan dulce, yeah. Rosetta Bakery has amazing bread, and this is one of her restaurants. Next slide. This was from 2015. Mexican students won medals in robotics in Romania and have since continued to win more medals. Lovely, diversity, reliable, effort, proud, pleasure, perseverance, working team, yes, smart, proud, team champions. I am reading your comments, by the way. That's why I'm looking over here. Happiness, satisfaction. Wow, Mexicans proud. Professionalism. Ooh, great word. Chaos, why not? Men, young Mexicans, intelligent. Oh, I love all of your answers. All right, next image. I don't know if you're familiar with this one. It's a little bit blurry. Not many good images exist out there, but let's see if it evokes some feelings. One woman, future of Mexico, teamwork, Mexican pride, effort, represent, victory, proud, clever, effort, Raramuri, yes. Winner, champions, effort, satisfaction, identity, intelligent, proud of her, professional, excuse me, champion, powerful women, cooperation, Chihuahua, recognition, happiness. Great answers, everybody. So, thank you so much for all of your answers. Now, think, why did these emotions come about? Why do these images bring so many positive and negative emotions? Think about that. Why are we having all these emotions? Well, if you are like me, I'm Mexican. I'm from Tijuana, right? And I think most of us here are Mexicans. Mexico on the world stage makes us very proud, doesn't it? With words like, proud, effort, champions, we can see that things can be achieved. We are proud to be Mexican in the world stage, not just here in our country, but in the world stage, internationally. Somebody said my love for Mexico. Yes, this is what, we those kinds of things bring up for some of us, to be proud that everything is possible. A lot of inspiration. Yeah. This image for me, the one with Diego Luna, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, proud of it. When I saw him in Star Wars, I thought, my goodness, a Mexican in Hollywood, in Star Wars, not just in Hollywood. We've had Mexicans for a long time in Hollywood, but in Star Wars, wow. That was just, for me, mind-blowing, and it made me feel extremely proud to have somebody from my country represent us internationally, right? All right, let's take a step back, just a little one, and start thinking about culture now. What is culture? By definition, culture tends to be things that we see, or people think immediately of things that we see. It can be the color of our skin, the food that we eat, customs, ceremonies that we perform, languages, beliefs and values when we start talking about them, art, and even our way of dress sometimes, right? But there are other things about culture that sometimes, or actually often and always, are not seen by even our closest friends. Things like assumptions, things like gender, social context, economic status, home family status, neurodivergence, and even subcultures. For example, this would be likes and dislikes. I can think of, me as a Star Wars fan. That is a subculture for me. And I also like Star Trek, in case anybody's wondering. I like both. So all of these things are part of who makes us us. It is part of my culture, our culture. We have a Mexican culture, general things, but then we also have our individual cultures. And I want to make that difference clear. We're going to be talking about both things as a whole, as a country, and as an individual. So what is culturally responsive teaching? I want you guys to remember this specific definition, all right? And I'm just going to read it for you. Culturally responsive teaching connects cultural knowledge, prior experience, and performance styles to academic knowledge and intellectual tools in ways that legitimize what students already know. And the powerful word here is legitimize, okay? I want you guys to think about this word. It's a very powerful word. And we will come back to it in a little bit, but remember that word. So, culturally responsive teaching, you maybe can see it as a bridge. Some of us teachers, well, actually a lot of us, like metaphors, right? So think of it as a bridge. maybe a bridge between content and cultures, a bridge between school and home as well, or maybe between something bigger. We don't know. You can think about that, but think of it as a bridge, all right? Hopefully the definition is clear, so that we can talk about how to use it. So why culturally responsive teaching? Well, we can talk about equality, right? Equality, you offer the same thing to every student. That's equality. And you would think, well, Selene, that's a great idea, right? Everybody gets the same because we want the same result. But if you look at the image, you can see that offering the same, in this situation, we've offered each person a step box that, maybe not necessarily. But what about equity? I want you to look at this image. Equity. Equity is offering other resources, other type of attention to other students who need different things. So some students may need a little bit, some students may not need anything, some students may need a little bit more. And this is all in the context of CRT. Because of the technology that I'm using, you can see the last image. This box is supposed to disappear. I'm sorry, I apologize, but our goal with CRT, or one of our goals, is actually to be free, liberation, and get rid of this wall. That is one of the goals of CRT. Get rid of those barriers. And a lot of these barriers, unfortunately, tend to come from institutions. It can be because it's been the way that it's always been and we haven't adapted. It can be because of our assumptions. It can be because of many, many different things. It's not just one single thing, okay? So how does CRT fit into Nueva Escuela Mexicana? Well, there's a lot of things actually that can where CRT can fit into Escuela Mexicana, Nueva Escuela Mexicana. But if we want to maybe be more specific, let's say, identidad con México, respeto a la dignidad humana, and definitely interculturalidad. That's a hard word for me. And all of these things, like we know with the new curriculum, we're trying to make sure that we give space to our students. We're trying to explore other ways that students use their background knowledge, which is so diverse, right? It's not just everybody is the same. So, with that in mind, what cultures are represented in your classrooms? And I want you to think about beyond, they're all Mexican. Think about socioeconomic status, ethnic background, home and family status, emotional status, neurodivergence. I want you to think about subcultures. So either make a mental note, if you would like to write your ideas, please do so. If you want to use the chat, that's okay as well. what cultures are represented in your classroom? Thank you for sharing in the chat. Mix. Remember, you don't just have Mexican students, and I don't mean think about beyond nationality and ethnicity. I am sure, I can guarantee you, we have a very diverse classroom. Otomi, yes. Mixed cultures, mixed culture, we have different abled students or neurodivergent students, different religions. Some of you may even have Americans, differently abled students, students with special needs, different ideologies. Wow. See, I know you have a very diverse classroom. Economical, right? Financial status. Students who speak Nahuatl, Masawa. Ooh, I'm not familiar with this group. Maya culture. Yeah, wow, very, very diverse. So, if for those of you who are not sure about, well, what do I have? What students are in my classroom? You know, it's a good idea to start building some cultural competence. Observe your students. Really look. This is where you might just look at the outside, okay? That's where we can start, and then we can go deeper. Observe. And this maybe perhaps you want to see what is one of their subcultures. And you can observe what they're wearing. Sometimes they have, for example, my students in Asia love pencil bags that will have different characters, or their water bottles will have stickers. And that's one way to learn their culture, their subculture. All right. You can give them surveys or questionnaires. You can talk to them, right? You can have them teach to you about their interests, okay? And this is more about the interest. They will not necessarily talk to you about their social or economic status, or even emotional status. That can be a little bit hard, but we have to start somewhere, right? We can't just go right away into deep feelings. We can have a lot of discussions as well. Do a lot of community building in your classroom as warm up. We're all English teachers, right? In your practice, I hope you are already doing warm-ups at the beginning of your class, and these are great where you can introduce ways to get to know your students. However, I want to emphasize that you have to be intentional. If you're not intentional about getting to know your students, then perhaps things might not go too well. Students are, I mean, I've been a teacher for 13 years now, and students know when you're lying. They can see right through you. So if you don't care to get to know your students, students will not care to share. So we have to be intentional. So, all right, Selene, we have culturally responsive teaching, and we have English classrooms. How do we get it going? What do we do, right? So first is building knowledge, which we already talked about with the previous slide. And then we put it into practice, okay? First, you have to learn about who your students are, and then put this into practice. Like I said, knowledge of of other cultures, knowledge of your students' cultural context, and just overall knowledge of your students. And then how does it look like in the classroom? It looks like, I just wrote, by applying this knowledge into your lessons, your behavior, and your expectations. That's a little bit, it sounds simple, but it's not that simple actually, especially when we have to modify our behavior as adults, which can be a challenge for some of us, I believe. All right, before we go any deeper, let's go into our second activity. Are you ready? I will be asking you to write about yourself. We're going to do a little bit of self-exploration. And again, you don't have to use the chat. This can be a little bit more personal. So again, I invite you to write some of your ideas, okay? And because I am a huge believer of teach by example, I will be sharing my answers. You do not, but I will show you my answers to these questions. I have 3 questions for you. What is your personal identity? Well, I said, I'm a loud introvert. I'm opinionated. I'm tenacious. What is your ethnic identity? And here you can answer anything you want, any way you want. It can be ethnicity, it can be nationality. There is no wrong or right answer. This is why I wrote my answer, because this is how I describe myself. Let's be open about our answers. I am Mexican. I am American. I'm Californian. I'm Chicana, and I'm Tijuanense. What about you? And what is your professional identity? Well, I can tell you, I am a language model, or I see myself as a language model. I'm a language cheerleader, and I'm a teacher model since I do a lot of teacher training. And by cheerleader, I mean as language teachers, we sometimes have to be very motivational for our students. In the previous presentation, the presenter talked about we're not there to entertain them. No, we're not there to entertain them. I agree 1000%. But we're definitely there to motivate them, get them interested in the language, right? That's my belief. That's my teaching philosophy. What about you? Oh, look at you guys. Facilitator, language facilitator. Thank you. A singer of languages. A proud Mexicana. I am Mexican. I am Chilanga. Yes, own it. I am a happy, shy teacher. Citizens of the world. I am smart and determined. Another loud introvert. Yes, unite. I am Mexican. I am a teacher. Yes, we're all teachers here. And that's an identity of us. I'm a friendly teacher. I'm an English teacher. I'm a guru. I'm a Mexican Jew. Guerrense. Motivator. Wow. Beautiful answers, you guys. Oh my gosh, I love it. Effort, intelligence, pronier. Oh, how we anglicize it? I'm a pronier. I think we can anglicize that. I enjoy being with my students. That's an identity. That's part of you. I am Moraliense. I am Superman. Ooh, are you? I'm intelligent. I'm a Yaqui teacher. I'm Tijuanense, another Tijuanense. Yes. I'm a dreamer. I'm a kindergarten teacher. Wow, beautiful ideas, you guys. Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing. You didn't have to. Now, how might someone who doesn't know you benefit from knowing these different aspects of your life. If somebody sees these descriptions, how might this other person look at you from there on? They're not just looking at this. They're not just looking at this. They're not just looking at this. They're looking at descriptions of you, getting to know you. And how do these definitions of yourself shape your teaching practice? This one I'm really curious about. How do these definitions of yourself shape your teaching practice? Do they influence how you teach? You know, for me, I will talk about this, for example, since I am a loud introvert, in the classroom, I become a different person. My teacher mode goes in, and I'm there to motivate my students, right? Because I'm also a cheerleader for them. I'm tenacious, and this always pushes me to push my students. Don't give up. In terms of my ethnic and identity and my nationalities, these shape me because in my classroom, I'm very crystal clear about my background with my students because I want them to do the same with me. And that way, they know that I am proud to be Mexican, to be American, to be Californian, to be Chicana, to be Tijuanense. I am all of these things, and I'm proud of it. And I want my students to do the same. Oh, and my cat says he's proud of himself too. So all of these things might have an influence on your teaching practice. Now, how does this look like in the classroom? Because, you know, we're all teachers, we want activities. I want to show you some activities for those of you who are in basic education or K through 6. These are some things, very simple things that you can do with your students. The I am cube. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the I am cube. It's a really cool activity, very simple, and your students just write about themselves. Depending on the age and the level, the questions will change. You can do the same cube with advanced students, by the way, and just change the questions. For example, these questions are meant for professionals, for us. I would never ask something, well, especially the professional identity, because our students are not professionals yet. I will ask them more about their personal identity, perhaps their ethnic or their ethnic identity or their nationalities. You might be surprised what you find out. You can do a little rainbow activity where they write about themselves. It's a really cute thing that your student arts and crafts activity that you can do in English, right? And then post it in your classrooms. By the way, all of this should be in the context of English. We're using a second language or even a third language, right? Or even maybe even a fourth, who knows? To get to know ourselves and get to explore ourselves. There is one picture here that the one with the airplane. I know it's very hard to see, the screen is very small, but that was made by my nephew, who is 3 years old, and he made this in California. Now he is bilingual. And these little airplanes were made, or the students were asked to design the airplane with things that describe themselves. Of course, my sister helped him because he's only 3 years old. He did all the coloring or helped her do the coloring. But she wrote on there, familia, cultura, música, and she wrote this in Spanish for a reason. In the context of California, my sister, who was also an educator, wants to make sure that he gets to represent himself, who is bilingual. Very cool activity, right? You can do self-portraits. If you're doing an arts and crafts class, you can do a self-portrait, and this one works for K through 9 and actually even college students. I've done this with my college students, and oh my goodness, the results that you get is amazing, and you get to see a little bit about their personality. If you have more advanced students, you can do an acrostic poem. So here we have Olivia with an acrostic poem, and they're just describing themselves. If you have more advanced students, then you would do a poem. And I'm sorry, it's really small. I will share all of this with you guys, okay? So that you have these resources. You can do a poem and edit it, of course, if you think it's too much for your students. So you can do any of these things so that your students get to talk about themselves in English, this other language that they're learning, right? All right, so let's consolidate a little bit. So once you get to know your students, how can you use this information to connect with them? Remember, in the context of Nueva Escuela Mexicana, there's a lot of things that we need to do, especially when it comes to our textbooks. Our textbooks have changed, thank goodness, a lot, but some things they still need a little bit of help. So for example, use vocabulary that is relevant to them. What do I mean by this? Don't just teach, hamburger and hot dog. Teach them words that they are going to be using to describe their country. All right. So for example, I know this is very basic, but the word taco, there is no equivalent in English. And the word wrap, it doesn't convey the same. So why not use the word taco in your with the anglicized version of it in your activities, right? Show pictures that show local people in neighborhoods. Make sure they're positive depictions. Oh, thank you for pambazo, enchilada. Yeah, torta, all of these words for food that they can, because these words don't have translation, and we students can use them to talk about them in English. Just because there's no translation doesn't mean they can't use them, right? My students in Korea, we use words like kimchi, kimbap, tteokbokki, because those words don't have you can describe them, but the word itself, it doesn't have a direct translation. Use names and names of characters or local names when giving examples. A lot of our sentences are Susie, da-da-da-da-da, Mary, da-da-da-da-da. We can use names in Spanish or languages that are represented in your classrooms. I also invite you to balance gender roles. Don't just, instead of things like Susie is strong, or I'm sorry, that was the other way around. Instead of saying Tommy is strong, you can say Susie is strong. Margarita is strong, right? Or instead of saying Flor is beautiful, yeah, but we just don't have to focus on the prettiness, right? On the facial features. We can talk about many other things that women and young girls are. Like, we're strong, we're smart. If you have an immersive classroom, of course, allow the L1 to an extent. Have your students provide you translations, not you. Allow them to use resources in their L1, especially if you have older students. And they do the translations themselves. Let them fight it out a little bit. Have an open mind of what you may deem acceptable. For example, I had students in Taiwan who live very close to China. And I don't know if you're familiar with the context of China and Taiwan, but the young students, their pictures, a lot of them have military context because of the history. And some teachers, some American teachers, I should say, didn't like these depictions of guns and tanks in the students' pictures. But I needed to have a chat with her and tell her, you know what, this is the students' reality. This is their context. This is what they are growing up with. So let's keep an open mind and accept those answers. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean that they shouldn't use it. Of course, we have to take how appropriate they are, but military stuff, you know, it's all around them. If you've ever been to Taiwan, you might know what I'm talking about, but it's all there. And the students, that's what they have. And of course, you can always gear them in other directions, suggest things, but again, don't take away their background information. So, activity 1, the one about the images, right? Why should we have balanced gender roles? Why should we allow the L1 in the classroom? Why should we allow food that is relevant to our students in the classroom, not just hot dogs and hamburgers and French fries? Because it acknowledges, it empowers, and most importantly, it lets our students know that they can question the status quo. We're here to empower our students as well, that motivate them, and especially those of us who come from a low-income family, like myself. We don't see ourselves as anything bigger than, you know, what the status quo is. But if we start seeing that, oh, look, we can do more, we can do more, we can fight to be somewhere else, I think that's very powerful. Now, what about activity 2, the one about self-exploration? You know, a lot of our students come from backgrounds where they might not have a voice, or they might not have a space or a safe space where they can talk about these things, where they can talk about their identity, whether for whatever reason, we can give them that space with the language that they're learning. I don't want to go too much into social and emotional learning because that's a whole other topic, but this is all part of it as well. But then also, once you remember, when we get to know our students, we're also being intentional about it. We show our students that their thoughts and their experiences show them that they matter. And think about how powerful, again, that can be for our students, or for some of our students. It's very, very powerful. So, oh my goodness, I'm reading your comments as I'm glancing, and you guys are. I love your answers and your comments. Thank you so much. So, to review, CRT. It's not just about these 2 things. These are the only 2 things that we talked about today. We have such a short time together, unfortunately, that we can't go in depth with the countless ways of applying CRT. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list, okay? There are many, 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 many other ways to do it, and many other topics that go into it. It's not an isolated topic. So the 2 things that we talked about is representation. Use information about your students to connect it to your lessons. All right. However you can find ways to do it, I encourage you to do it. and offer those outlets of self-expression and self-exploration. Now, there are some considerations, especially with Nueva Escuela Mexicana. All of these topics might be a little bit new or some of them might be a little bit new. We're not comfortable because we're changing our teaching practice. So I just want to make sure that you understand that what we went over does not mean you have to do it all, especially if you're not comfortable with it in your ELT practice. Your ELT practice is how do I say this? It can evolve slowly. And maybe some of us have been teaching for a really long time that we're so used to grammar, vocab, grammar, vocab, that it's hard to incorporate these kinds of activities into our classrooms. But I encourage you, take it slow. Baby steps, whatever you can do with it. It takes time to incorporate CRT into your classroom. Also, I would encourage you to try some of the activities yourself first before you ask your students to do them. CRT is a two-way street. It's a two-way street. You can't ask your students to talk about themselves if you don't share about yourself. As I said from the beginning, I always model what I want my students to do. I share my answers first. If I ask my students, if they tell me something that they like, I'll reply with something that I like. And it gets a conversation going. So it's a two-way street. So hopefully all of you, oh my goodness, and I can see from your answers already, you all come from such a diverse background that that you can share those things with your students as well. Here are my references. I want to thank you so much for being here. Again, CRT, take it slow, baby steps, and do first things, try them out first, and then try it in your classroom. I would like to invite you to our website, americanenglish.state.gov, where we have free resources from all levels, from K through college level class resources. We have reading, we have music, there's webinars for you to continue your professional development. Again, I'd like to thank you for being here, taking the time to from your teaching practice to be here. Thank you so much for all of your comments. Wow, and my and the cat. Thank you. Oh wow, look. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Again, Brony, for inviting me. It's been an honor.
Thank you very, very much, Selene. And of course, thank you, Brony, for having included her at this programming. This Jornada Nacional is special because the programming was co-designed with Brony authorities, and half of the speakers were proposed by them, and others sponsored by British Council. We hope that you will make the most of this opportunity. Again, thank you, Ms. Selene, for this wonderful session. All right, muy bien. Desafortunadamente, el canal de YouTube no está disponible los subtítulos en las sesiones en vivo. Y esto se debe a la inteligencia artificial que no alcanza a hacer este proceso justamente en las sesiones en vivo. Sin embargo, podemos contar con los subtítulos ya durante nuestras sesiones grabadas. Recuerden, por favor, que pueden volver a visualizar todas las sesiones utilizando el mismo link. Recordemos también que tenemos un descanso para ir a movernos un poco, agarrar una tacita de café y regresar frescos y preparados para nuestra siguiente sesión. Welcome back, everyone. For our next session, it's my pleasure to welcome Sergio Durant from the British Council. Sergio has been a language teacher, teacher trainer, material writer, and programming coordinator for 20 years. He has spoken at various international conferences, mainly about ordering and cultural appropriacy in ELT materials. He was a plenary speaker at BIBELT 2021 and won the IATF Latin American Scholarship in 2019. It is my pleasure to welcome Sergio Durant.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. To be invited by the British Council is always a pleasure and a privilege, right? So I would like to start with my presentation. The the topic today it is very interesting. I think that today it is essential to start, well, to retake this topic and to discuss this topic because it is it is going to be part of the new programs. It is part of our everyday life now. It's not something new, but it's something that fortunately it is now institutionalized, and it's let's say more open to be discussing about. So as well as Ale told you, my name is Sergio Duran, and the topic today is interculturality in English language acquisition or in English language teaching. What we're going to do today? Well, today we're going to discuss a little bit of what is interculturality. That's what we will try to establish first. Then we're going to talk about the problems. Does it tackle? Yeah. What are the problems that interculturality tackle and why we are using this umbrella term in order to approach the problems? And finally, how can we do it in the ELT classroom? I will try to bring some, let's say, some practical ideas to incorporate in our everyday life. Yeah. Well, the previous presentation was very good, and many of these aspects were already mentioned. But well, now we're gonna do other of these aspects. Okay. Well, and by the way, I am looking at the chat. Thank you very much. Hi, David. Good to see you. I see some people that I know, and well, many others that I know you are very interesting teachers that are here. And well, first I would like to thank you, and the second thing is that I would like you to see your comments in the chat box. Yes, I am reading all your comments, and there are going to be parts of this presentation in which I actually ask you to type things there so we can have I know it's hard to have a conversation with all of you, but at least to have some communication and some interaction there, right? Okay. So and actually that's the first thing we're going to do. Yeah, this is a very interesting activity, I think. We all have heard interculturality before. I mean, this word has been one of those concepts that have been there for a while, but somehow it is so mentioned that maybe we are not very sure what it means, right? So, well, thank you. Kenya has already started typing some of these words. So the first activity is type only one word in the chat box that you think describes interculturality. Yeah, I'm reading diversity, differences, sharing. Yeah, what else? One word. In one word, Can you describe interculturality in only one word? I know it's different. It's difficult, but maybe we can have a go. Diversity, sharing, convenience. Okay, differences, sharing. I think a lot of you are on the, of course, on the right track, using very similar words. Join. Okay, interconnectedness. Okay, that's a very good one, Maria Luisa. Globalization. Okay, tolerance, mix. Okay, sharing culture. Okay, that's the word, but I understand. Yeah, equitable. Respect. Thank you, Marta. That's a very good one too. What else? Particularity. It can also be a little bit. Identity. US Mexico, maybe. Okay. Learning, interaction, culture, mixture, union. Yeah, many words that are very interesting, and that they kind of describe interculturality in one way or another, right? Okay, let's stop there. I mean, you can keep typing these kind of words in the chat box, but I'm gonna continue with the next slide. And I'm gonna ask you now to write in the chat box again, yes or no. There is a question and a picture there. There's a picture. Do you think this represents interculturality? Just type yes or no. What do you think? Does this picture make you think of the concept interculturality? Some of you are writing yes. Yeah, yes, yes. All right. Let's give the others one more minute, maybe, to see. Yeah, a lot of yes. Liam said no. Okay. I mean, there aren't right or wrong answers, right? It's only what makes you think. For the majority of you, this picture makes you think of interculturality. Let's see. How about picture number 2? This was picture number 1. How about picture number 2? Do you think this represents interculturality? What do you guys think? Some of you say it depends. Okay. No. Some of you say no. Some of you say yes. Yeah. Okay. I am just yes, of course. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is not an exam. It's just a way to start this conversation, this interaction in which we're going to discuss what interculturality is and how we can approach it in the ELT classroom. So I think the majority of people say yes, and some of you say no, so that's fine. We're gonna move to picture number 3. Yeah, that's the last picture. What do you guys think? Do you think, do you think these represents interculturality? It's just a cover of an English book. Does it represent interculturality? It is supposed to be a cover of an English book, and English is supposed to, promote interculturality. But what do you think? I'm starting to see more no's than yes for this number 3. More no's than yes. No, no, no. Some of you say no. Yeah. Okay. Maybe. Okay. Some of you are not very sure about it. Okay. Some yes, some no. Okay. Good. So I mean, if we agree, I mean, if we take a general, let's say, agreement, we would agree that pictures number 1 and number 2, they kind of represent interculturality, whereas picture number 3, it doesn't necessarily represent interculturality, right? I mean, if I am just summarizing, of course, there were many different opinions, but from what you wrote in the chat box, and from what I probably think, the first two pictures represent interculturality, or a kind of interculturality, but number 3 doesn't. Yeah, okay, let's agree on that. And let's move on to the next part. Yeah. And the question is, why do they portray interculturality, or why not? Let's focus first on picture number 1 and number 2. Yeah, picture number 1 and number 2. The majority of us thought that they represent interculturality. Tell me, why picture 1 and picture 2? And I'm going to show them to you very quickly again. Picture number 1 and picture number 2. The question is, why do they portray interculturality? Just type something there in the chat box. I don't know, something like, okay, because there is diversity, okay, because he shares a language and culture. Some of you don't agree with this, but that's fine, because the images are showing diversity, okay, because they show the differences in the world. That's a good point. Because there are world and children, the existence and equitable interaction of diverse cultures, and the possibility of generating shared cultural knowledge. Okay, different cultures, many things. Both images show diversity. It shows different cultures and diversity. It both, okay, they show the different type of people. Okay, I agree with most of you in what you're mentioning. Yeah, both of them are supposed to represent interaction among different ethnicities, different origins, different cultures, different languages in one space, right? Good. Okay, now remember that we said that picture number 3, well, again, it's not that it was right or wrong, but the majority of us thought that picture number 3 didn't represent diversity. Sorry, didn't represent interculturality. Why? Why do you think it doesn't represent, or it doesn't portray interculturality? Because the images show different nationalities, okay? Now about number 3. It's only showing, okay, a guy writing, okay? Maybe because it's only language, because there are different races, different ethnicities, you mean? It lacks reality. Good one. In the first two pictures, you see more diverse people. Good. Because it's just one nationality and one language. Okay. Yeah. So because interculturality refers to dynamics, so it represents exchange. And in picture number 3, there isn't much exchange. Okay. Different cultures and languages. Okay. Depends on how you use this material. Okay, I agree. All right. What else? Okay, the book focus maybe in an American or British. Good comment. We're gonna go there in a moment. So yeah, if we look at the picture, even if it is part of an English course book that is about writing, it represents it's not representing many cultures, right? It's only representing one, right? It's only representing 2 people there, probably looking very white, and well, not focusing or not showing many other cultures. So I agree with this, and this takes us to one of the points today. Yeah. Probably 2 of the most significant, let's say, 2 of the most significant problems that English language teaching in general faces is, one of them is native speakerism, and the other one is EFL, that means the approach of teaching English as a foreign language, right? Yeah. Okay. So first, let's talk about native speakerism. Yeah. What is native speakerism? Native speakerism is one of the things that, I mean, it's one of the problems, one of the situation that many English teachers and many people in the language learning world, we have been discussing for the last probably 20 years. Native speakerism refers to the construction of the native speaker as the ideal speaker. Yeah. Okay. And it's basically how English has been taught for many years. Yeah. Some people are asking who coined this term. Well, there's been various authors that have been talking about it. But yeah, it is about the construction of the native speaker as the ideal speaker. Yeah. Which is how the English language learning and the English language teaching world has worked for many years. Yeah. The problem with this is that it doesn't construct all native speakers, I mean, people that speak English as their first language, as the ideal speaker. It only represents certain native speakers. It only represents certain looks, certain classes, certain kind of speakers as the ideal speaker. Yeah. And it led a lot of the speakers of English in the world, people like us, and it represents us, or it calls us non-native speakers. Yeah. Which can be a little problematic in many ways. So I'm gonna pause for just 1 second to say something. This, let's say that this term native speakerism is not against native speakers themselves. It's not about people that speak English as their first language. I mean, that doesn't have to do. It's just, it's just an accident to speak English as your first language. It's fine. The problem is when this becomes an ideology, and people think that because they are native speakers, they are more qualified, or they are more, let's say, they are superior to people that can speak English as their first language, right? That as you know, in the English language teaching world, there have been many problems about it, right? So the question I'm going to ask you now, yeah, that it's there, it is, what problems does it bring to non-native speakers? This term, this concept of native speakerism, what problems can it bring to non-native speakers? And I am writing that in quotation marks, because it's how a lot of the terminology has been calling us for a long time, right? Pronunciation, yeah, Maria Trinidad thinks that it is pronunciation. It is also about the accent, or people are afraid of attempting to speak. Yeah, very good. Vocabulary, yeah, that is part of that. Racism, I agree with Veronica. Native speakerism, again, the concept of thinking that native speakers are only the ideal speaker, and making that the objective for learners, it is very, very hard, right? Because we all know today that to be able to achieve certain certain kind of pronunciation, certain kind of accent, it is difficult for someone that didn't learn English as their first language, right? So it is difficult, right? um some people say that it could be that they can teach correct pronunciation. Okay. I would say that again, the problems that I'm not talking about the problems that non-native speakers have, but it is the problems that this ideology, the ideology of thinking that native speakers are the ideal speaker, can bring to non-native speakers. Yes, lack of opportunities, afraid to speak in public. Yeah, I mean, there are many other things that how this ideology can affect us non-native speakers, right? Good. So that is one point, and I am focusing on this because this has been a way in which English language has been taught for many years. Yes, putting the native speaker or portraying the native speaker as the ideal speaker. Yes, and that made us, people that don't speak English as our first language, a little behind or a little out of the discussion. Yes, this is going to be important when we go back to what interculturality is. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to show you now the other point, that is the approach of teaching English as a foreign language. Yeah. When when English was first taught many years ago, it was taught as a foreign language because for many people in the world where English was not the first language, it was a foreign language. Yeah. So here we have this little definition. English as a foreign language refers to teaching English in countries where English isn't the first or dominant language. Yeah. And unfortunately, now it focuses on promoting the understanding of the target culture, normally American or British, to ease the learning of the language. Yeah, to make the learning of English easier. People and in the past thought that it was a good idea to promote the understanding of the target language, either American or British, and that was fine for many years. I'm not saying this is totally wrong. I'm just saying that for the 21st century, when we are talking about this in 2023, keep teaching English as a foreign language might be a little bit problematic for some aspects. The first one is that nowadays English is an international language. Yeah. We cannot only focus on teaching the culture of the USA, the culture of Canada, the culture of the United Kingdom. We need to start looking at other cultures too, because as we know, English today is an international language that doesn't only affect people that learn it as a first language, but nowadays there are some studies that suggest that there are more English speakers as a second or third language than people that speak English as their first language. Yeah. So my question here is, can we still see English as a national language? I mean, as a national language of the United States or as a national language of the United Kingdom? What do you think? Please go to the chat box and tell me that. Can we still see it as a national language? Some people say yes. Yes, we'll teach the language native to the Spanish and teach in English to have, okay, no longer, maybe Chinese too. Okay. What else? Some of you are saying definitely no. Yeah, especially Julio Alberto Mendoza says that now it's an international language and that we cannot keep looking at English as if it was only the language of the United States or the language of the United Kingdom. It is the language of the United States and it is the language of the United Kingdom, but at the same time, it is an international language that serves as a means of communication for millions and millions of people in the world. Yeah. So, having discussed this, think we have discussed enough about this. Some of you still think it can be seen as a national language. I think the majority of the comments in the chat are about that it's important to understand American or British culture, but that now it is a global language, a language that can help people communicate. Yeah. Nowadays, when you talk to a Japanese person or a German person, and there is you in the same room, you normally speak in English with 2 or 3 different people, even if they come from a total different background, right? So my next slide is about this. What makes these views a little problematic? These views, the native speakerism view, that, remember, native speakerism refers to constructing the idea that the native speaker is the ideal speaker. And the second one, that is English as a foreign language, that refers to thinking that the target culture of English should be either American or British. Why, or what makes these concepts problematic? Thinking that now we are talking about interculturality. Yeah, exactly. Well, someone is just typing that there are, even if it was then even if English was seen as a national language, it is not only the national language of the United States and the United Kingdom, right? Nowadays, English is the national language of Nigeria, well, of course, Australia, India, many other countries, right? Exactly. It is an international language. Yeah. Okay. It's problematic only for who keeps thinking that native speakers are the only people able to teach English. Yeah, it is, and unfortunately, it is still problematic, because how many times have we heard people saying that, oh, you don't have a good accent to teach, or maybe you should improve your pronunciation. Even if you have all the skills to teach, even if you have already gone through many certifications, or years and years of experience, there are still some points there, right, that sometimes points out that you're not a native speaker, right? So especially these 2 points, native speakerism and English as a foreign language, take us to the next little problems. That, well, it's not only me who have found these problems. I'm gonna tell you about some researchers that have been doing this, researching interculturality and the way we can improve English language teaching to make it a little bit more welcoming. Yeah. So, what makes these views a little problematic? What make native speakerism and teaching English as a foreign language a little problematic? Well, the first is that they encourage a we versus you perspective, a kind of dichotomy. That is, this is us, native speakers, or this is us, the owners of the language, and then that's you, the other, someone that needs to learn my language. Yeah, but you need to learn it from my own perspective. Yeah, and that is the second point, that they negotiate a learning process where we are supposed to learn about them. Think of your English textbooks from 20 years ago. All of them were about New York, the Big Ben, um, English or American celebrities. It was learning about them. Yeah, it was not learning through them, or it was not learning with them. It was learning about them only. Yeah, and yeah, that makes it kind of hard, because where were us, right? Where was my identity? Where was me also telling the world that I was proud of being Mexican and I was proud of being myself, right? The last point is that language is seen as a form of expression rather than interaction. Yes, language is not just to say, "Oh, this is me. Look at this. You need to read what I wrote," etc., etc. It is about interacting and negotiating and communicating and being on the other side too. Yeah, not just this is me, but it is also this is me, but I want to learn about you. Okay? Yeah, so these are the three problems that, especially these two concepts that we checked some minutes ago, can bring. Okay? And now we're gonna see how interculturality tackle them, how interculturality solve the problem. I checked at the beginning of the session. Someone was asking, what does tackle mean? Well, tackle is, like in in American football, you tackle someone. Well, it's the same with problems in English. When we tackle a problem, it means that we are solving the problem. Yeah, and let's see how interculturality solve or try to tackle these problems of only having English as if it was a local national language that is not part of everybody's life. The problem, you remember one of the problems was they encourage a we versus you perspective. You remember? Yeah, the we versus you perspective. Well, someone that knows a little bit more than me, Flowers and other researchers say that teaching through an intercultural perspective requires a process of reflection about the different cultures inside the classroom to become the classroom in a safe environment where diverse opinions are welcome and transcend the native model of the language, since non-native speakers are going to communicate with other non-native speakers. Yeah, so it's not just having this dichotomy of native speakers, non-native speakers, we versus you, national versus foreign, but it's melting. Like some of you remember at the beginning of the session, some of you were typing the word mixture or melting as part of interculturality. Well, you were absolutely right. Melting, mixing each other, and in a place where we start forgetting who is we and who is you, right? That is part of interculturality, being part of the same mass, right? Being part of the same group, that in this case is English speakers, people that speak English either as the first, second, third, fourth language, it doesn't matter, but that are part of the same community. Yeah. So no more we versus you. Interculturality tries to avoid this problem by making the classroom a safe environment, yeah, where diverse opinions are welcome and where everybody can be part of the discussion. Yeah. How about the second problem? The second problem was that they negotiate a learning process where we are supposed to learn about them. Remember that we said that many of the textbooks are about, I don't know, the Big Ben, going to London, the BBC, New York, Hollywood in general. Well, it was a bit unfair to make us learn about the target culture, learn about American or British culture. Nowadays, with interculturality, um, interculturality promotes a different negotiation there. Yeah. Let me read what Azorin and Fulan wrote in 2022. They stated, teachers must provide intercultural training, but not only having English speaking countries as reference. Yeah. Learners need to gain knowledge about different world cultures, which permit them to contrast and compare with their own in order to interpret and evaluate critically. Yeah. Therefore, there is the necessity to teach English as an international language in order to communicate with the world under intercultural principles: respect, equity, equality, and fairness. Yeah. So it's not just about learning about them, it's about learning with them, and also make them learn about us too, right? With an intercultural perspective, we are not supposed to only learn about, I don't know, American culture or British culture, but to learn about any culture, and at the same time to compare those cultures with our own and see what are probably the advantages, the disadvantages, and how we find ourselves in other cultures and how other cultures can be found in our culture too. Yeah, because we are people, right? Okay. The last point is that language is seen as a form of expression rather than interaction. And yeah, this is a problem too. Yeah. So Picardo and other researchers in 2019 stated that in contrast to production interaction, language is not just a means of expression. Yeah, it's not just me saying something. It is primarily a vehicle to access the other, the new, the unknown, or to help other people to do so. So, um, English for many of our students is the vehicle or is the window to the world, a window through which they can learn about people in other continents, in other countries. And again, not just about people that speak English as their first language, but about people and with people that are also learning English as a second language. Yeah. So, according to interculturality, yeah, or the concept of interculturality, we are supposed to see language as interaction, yeah, as a way to find myself in other cultures. All right. So far, so good. Yeah, I think. Well, I see. Sorry if I cannot read all the comments in the chat box. It's great. I think your participation is amazing. You're doing really well. But well, okay. Let's focus on the practical ideas. Yeah, let's think of practical ideas, how we can bring interculturality in my classroom. Yeah. How can I do it? Well, set different role models. Yeah. Again, the native speaker role model is problematic in many ways. It's difficult for us to imitate other person's accent, other person's culture. It's going to be very problematic if we keep or if we make our students believe that the ideal or their objective is to speak as a native speaker. No. On the other hand, we have many examples nowadays, many examples of very successful speakers of English as a second or as an international language. Here we have some examples of actors, celebrities, football players, influencers. You know that nowadays a lot of our students are into influencers. Well, let's use those role models, yeah, and try to use them too, to make them believe that speaking English at their level, giving interviews in Hollywood, giving interviews in Manchester, giving interviews somewhere, it is something possible. Yeah, because all of them started like our students are starting now, learning basic words until they got there, right? Here we have some examples like, I don't know, Chicharito, Tenoch Huerta, that has also advocated a lot for a different way to see ethnicity and Mexican culture. Ana de Armas, that is from Cuba and that also speaks English as a very good, well, she's a very good speaker of English. So in general, let's set other role models. If we are going to use a role model, a video from YouTube, an interview from somewhere in the internet, we can use them, right? Some of them, yeah, Salma Hayek, exactly. Salma Hayek is another great example. Some of you are saying, why Tenoch? We are not, we can agree or not with him. I'm just saying that he's a very good example of speaking English as a second language or as an international language, because he's there giving interviews in a very good English. And yeah, Sofia Vergara too. I mean, many other examples. So even if Guillermo del Toro, exactly, many other actors, celebrities, politicians, right, that are now successful English speakers. The second practical idea I have for you is discuss about different cultures. Yeah, we don't need to discuss only about European culture or North American culture. Yeah, now the internet can bring us or can make us research about the Maori or the Inuit people or other peoples in Africa, Asia, Latin America. Um, let's compare our our traditions with their tradition. Let's compare their everyday life to our everyday life. It's not just about um, speaking and learning about American or British people. Yeah, nowadays I think we should. It's not only a possibility. I think we should make our students learn and understand what is happening in the world. Because again, it is probably, well, it is a very realistic possibility that they find themselves speaking in English to someone that doesn't speak English as their first language, to someone that is not a native speaker. Yeah. Another practical idea that is something that I think the famous Nueva Escuela Mexicana is about. Give learners the chance to talk about their own culture. Yeah. We also have a lot to share. Yeah. Compare our cultures. It's, I think, a very, probably a very good idea to try to include these projects in which they can learn about other cultures like India, Asian countries, African countries, and then compare their culture with their own culture. Yeah, not just about the, as the previous speaker was saying, not just about the status quo, right? But learn about other cultures, small cultures maybe from countries that are distant, but that are that share many things with us too. And well, you know that in the new programs we have a lot of these transversal projects, and this is exactly where interculturality is an important part of this. Interculturality is not a matter of teachers teaching to students to become intercultural speakers. It's not just telling them, you're going to be an intercultural speaker now. No, interculturality must paramount all the relationships at the school, and it must be reinforced throughout projects which foster diversity. Yeah, so we need to focus also that our projects focus diversity. Yeah, and a good example of this is something that, and I would like to mention one of our, well, one of the, I I can say that is a very good example of what we can do with the teaching of English in this country. Mario Lopez Gopar, maybe you've heard of him. He's an amazing scholar who has led this project in Oaxaca, in which a lot of different teachers um, go to indigenous regions to teach English, but teach English from a different perspective, from this intercultural perspective. Yes, this multilingual perspective in which national languages, Spanish and English, all have the same respect and should be part of the conversation, right? Here's one example of this. This is a multilingual identity text. If you can notice in the picture, there is a text that is in Mixteco, in Spanish, and in English too, right? So giving learners the opportunity to use their own language and make them understand that their language is respected as well as Spanish and English is a very important part of interculturality too. Other projects that are also contained in Mario Lopez Gopar's works are, for example, Plants in My Community and in the World, right? Compare what are the plants in my city, in my town, and in the world, schools in Mexico and in other countries. There can be many other projects, right? These are just examples of them. Well, and the conclusions. Well, I think the conclusions can be very practical, in my opinion, right? The first is I don't need to change my identity to learn English. This is me. This is Sergio Duran, someone who has grown up in Mexico, someone who has eaten quesadillas and pambazos, like it was mentioned in the previous talk. I don't need to change my identity to learn English. On the other hand, I have a lot to share, right? And that's why I want to learn English, to share my knowledge. And English is a vehicle of communication and a gate to learn about other cultures. Yeah, through English, I got the curiosity to learn about cultures in Tanzania, New Zealand, France, everywhere in the world. I can learn about other cultures and share about mine. There can be various accents to speak in English. Yeah, there isn't a right accent. Every accent is acceptable. Yes, of course. I read in the comments we need to be intelligible. That's true. But apart from that, every accent is acceptable. And finally, an English speaker can have different looks and origins. Yeah. Nowadays, I think we need to change the idea of who is an English speaker, right? Because everybody can be an English speaker. It doesn't matter how they look, where they come from, in general, right? These are my references. I don't know if we still have a little bit of time to some questions. So, well, I'm just reading some of the comments for the following 2 minutes, right? Some of you, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for listening to my talk. Thank you, Citlali. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, well, everybody. Sorry if I don't mention all the words and all the names, but well, there are a lot. Thank you very much for being here. It was a pleasure. Thank you, British Council. Thank you, Proni. Thank you, Secretaría de Educación, for putting all this together. And yeah.
Thank you, Sergio, for this wonderful presentation. Please receive our gratitude for your participation. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Ale.
Thanks to all of the participants today. We have posted in the chat the link and the QR code for today's quiz, so please click on it and be sure to answer. Remember to write your name and email correctly. I'm sure we will meet, and stay tuned because we will see you in a minute for the closing of this day. All right, so we're coming to the end of the first day of this wonderful event. And please remember to go and take your quiz. This will count for your certificate of attendance. And it's now time to welcome in Ms. Mariana Solis, Academic Subdirector of PRONI, who will be formally closing today's event. Welcome, Ms. Mariana Solis.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you. I hope you have enjoyed and gained valuable insight from the lectures presented today, such as I have. I'd invite you to integrate the recommendations and lesson tips you just learned in your daily practice and try being the best educators you can be to enrich your students' lives. I thank you for your commitment and tireless effort to improve English learning. I also want to thank the British Council, Liliana Sanchez, Laura Mesa, Selene Góngora, and Sergio Durant for their sharing and academic advice. Now, I'm going to clarify some of your doubts that were frequently posted on the chat. First of all, for those teachers who cannot participate in live sessions, please do not worry at all, since these lectures will be recorded and can be viewed asynchronously. This way, you can work your lessons completely. However, teachers, bear in mind that the daily quizzes will be available until November the 3rd. So please don't forget it. And there's no timing once the quiz has been opened. So please solve it calmly. Then don't forget, as Ale said, to fill in the daily attendance form and questionnaire at the end of each virtual session. This in order to ensure your certificate. And talking about certificate, these certificates will be delivered, or you will receive your certificate in December through your PRONI coordination office. Okay? Well, thank you all for your participation today, and I look forward to see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.